Top 10 times I, Maltazar the Great, found myself in Eldritch Entanglements. Welcome, viewer, to the chronicles of my unparalleled exploits into realms best left unvisited. I'll have you know, eldritch horrors are not merely the stuff of campfire tales. They are breakfast, lunch, and midnight snacks for those who dare to wield true power. Pour yourself a cup of courage or perhaps a stiff drink and prepare to witness my brilliance, occasionally tempered by what some might call misfortune. But rest assured, it's all part of being Maltazar, the infinitely wise. Number 10. The day I opened a portal to the Opera of Agony. It began innocently enough. A late-night experiment to summon the perfect cup of coffee. Instead, I inadvertently opened a rift into the realm of melodious suffering. From the void emerged an ensemble of translucent skeletal beings who introduced themselves as the Choir of Eternal Woe. The opening act that they now insisted on performing to me as I stood confused in my dark kitchen. A symphony so hauntingly beautiful it made my furniture cry. By the second movement, my ears were bleeding, my teacup had developed stage fright, and my raven started whispering lyrics. Banishing them required a counter-harmony, which I conducted using a pair of cursed spatulas and a mop. The experience left me caffeine-deprived and emotionally compromised. And yes, I'm still receiving mail from their manager, something about royalties owed for my inadvertent collaboration. Number 9. The Dreadful Tale of the Sentient Rug. In my quest for ultimate luxury, I purchased a rug from an auctioneer who spoke only in guttural coughs. Turns out the rug was a slumbering spawn of Nyarlathotep. Every time I stepped on it, it sighed in ecstasy and began rearranging my furniture into summoning circles. The worst part? It developed a taste for conversation, commenting on my abysmal taste in curtains and lack of respect for ancient decor. I moved out of that tower as soon as I could. Last I heard, the rug had started its own interior design business. Truly unsettling. Is it not decorating houses with their own kin? I also occasionally receive postcards from it. They're eerily well crafted, like it spent a lot of time making them, and they contain ominous notes like, "Hope your new decor doesn't offend the cosmos." Number 8. When the Void wrote me a love letter. Romantic entanglements are one thing, but finding a note in your sock drawer from the abyss declaring undying devotion is quite another. It's signed off with 1,000 blinking eyes and a postscript. P.S. Your underwear smells of eternity's despair. Let's discuss. Flattered, I politely declined. I like to think I've learned by now not to get romantic with entities that thrive on my despair. We all have to learn sometime. Still, every now and then, I receive a midnight whisper asking if I've reconsidered the endless depths of depravity that we could achieve together. At one point, it sent me flowers, night-blooming horrors that hissed in the moonlight. I'll admit, I kept those for the ambience. Number 7. The time I borrowed the unknowable grimoire. The Librarian of Shadows said, "You'll return it in 3 days, yes?" I laughed. Rules are for novices. On the 4th day, the book grew legs, sprinted to my bedroom, and screamed until I returned it. I still don't know why it was wet. The shock left me deeply unnerved and slightly traumatized. Not to mention, I received a fine in spectral currency that I'm still unsure how to repay. Number 6. The incident with the singing toothbrush. A minor enchantment gone awry. I attempted to craft the ultimate oral hygiene device, but ended up with a toothbrush that sang hymns of the Elder Ones. The harmonies, while oddly beautiful, caused minor ear bleeding and a significant dip in my social life. I could never look at plaque the same way. Also, the toothbrush tried to annex my teeth into its interdimensional choir, occasionally demanding an encore performance of its favorite psalm. No, thank you. The toothbrush's final act of rebellion was composing an aria so profoundly unsettling that my bathroom mirror cracked. The mirror had been a gift from the void. So the cursed brush is now entombed in my cabinet of shameful experiments. to suffer alone for all eternity. Number 5. Dinner with an entity called Jeffrey. He had 6 mouths and insisted they were all vegetarian, and the way he ogled my soul was disconcerting. Jeff offered me a deal for untold power. The only price was 1 teaspoon of joy each day. I agreed for a week, until I discovered he'd been siphoning off my joy of puns. Betrayal. When I confronted him, Jeff's mouths argued over whether pun theft technically counted as dietary treason. It did. We parted ways, and afterwards he left a bad review of my soul. Too salty, 2 out of 5 stars. Asshole. Number 4. The cursed hat of endless lamentation. Fashion is important. However, the hat's constant wailing about the sins of mankind made it hard to enjoy. I'd enter a tavern, and suddenly everyone was crying. Worst part? It had an impeccable sense of style, so I couldn't just burn it. Once, it tried to host an intervention for my questionable life choices. I've since pawned it off to an unsuspecting bard who's likely learning humility the hard way. Occasionally, I hear rumors of the bard's wandering minstrel act. It's apparently become a traveling tragedy show with rave reviews. I kind of wish I kept it. It would have made a good gift for the void. Number 3, that time I tripped into an infinite pit. Not my proudest moment. The pit whispered my deepest fears as I fell. You'll never be a real wizard. Your hat is compensatory. Rude. I escaped by sheer force of ego, shouting back, "You're just a hole with delusions of grandeur." I'm fairly certain I hurt its feelings. Months later, I received a letter written in borderline incomprehensible script, simply stating, "Why are you like this?" I framed it. Number 2. When the stars blinked at me. While stargazing to impress a rival, the constellations blinked in unison and whispered, "Maltazar, why? Why what?" They wouldn't elaborate, leaving me with profound cosmic anxiety. To this day, I'm convinced they were judging my choice of robe. Either that, or my recent summoning experiments had offended some celestial committee. I've since apologized. Ceremonially. Now I'm unsure if my wardrobe and rituals are cosmically approved. Number 1. The day I accidentally became an eldritch being. Oops. All I did was mix an enchanted teacup with a pinch of star matter and a forbidden chant. Suddenly, I had extra appendages and a newfound thirst for the tears of mortals. Fixed it with a counterspell, but for 3 days, I was my own worst nightmare. During this time, my reflection in mirrors waved at me mockingly. My shadow tried to strangle me, and my pet raven moved out. I now understand why no one answers my party invitations. My subsequent apology letters to the dark gods were ignored. Conclusion. Eldritch encounters are not for the faint of heart. Still, as the greatest wizard of all time, I've emerged victorious. Mostly. If you ever feel tempted to explore the unknowable, remember my golden rule. Always bring a spare pair of pants and never, never trust a rug or ghost the void.